Folks, would you have bought your home if you knew it was hiding a massive secret? I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for York Region for week ending February 19th, 2025. We were in a discussion to list this property. Now, the property was the scene of a violent crime. We didn't end up listing the property, but you should know if it was listed, that scene of a violent crime is not something that was going to be disclosed. The seller is under no obligation to disclose that. A violent crime is considered a stigma, and according to our real estate rules right now, that does not need to be disclosed. So I ask you, if you're a buyer, is it something you'd want to know? Would it affect your decision to buy the home knowing it was the scene of a violent crime? Let me know in the comments below. There are so many situations that fall into this category. If the home is a grow-op, so they manufacture drugs there, that does need to be disclosed. Just because the biggest reason is it could affect you living in that home. It could affect the air quality in the home. Although all these things get tested, it could affect the structure of the home. There's a lot of things. It could affect the mold in the home and behind the walls. There's a lot of things associated with it being a grow-up, and that's why that needs to be disclosed. But there's so many other aspects of things that maybe would make the buyer uncomfortable, or maybe would make the buyer say, absolutely not, I'm not buying this house. Maybe would lower the value of the property. There's many of these things that do not need to be disclosed. What if the seller, the owner of the home, was convicted of a crime and went to jail? Would you want to know that? Would it affect your decision to buy the home? Because it does not need to be disclosed. Let me know in the comments below. I know of a home that was shot at and broken into. No one needs to tell you that. Would that affect, though, your decision to buy? Think about that for a second. A home was shot at and broken into, the same home. I'm assuming it's targeted. But would you want to know that as a buyer? Would it affect your decision to buy it? And how would it affect? Is it, no, I don't want it, or I'll take it but at a different price? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious as to what your take is on that. What if they were selling guns out of the home, or they were selling drugs? So they weren't manufacturing drugs, they were just selling drugs. And I don't say it lightly when I say just selling drugs. It's pretty serious. It does not need to be disclosed. But would you want to know? Would it affect your decision to buy the home? Let me know in the comments below. I'm saying all this because there's many situations out there that the seller is under no obligation to let you know. But these situations that the seller does not need to let you know may cause you not to want to buy that home. So here's my advice. If you're a seller and you're wondering, do I disclose this or don't I disclose this? Ask your real estate lawyer. Find out legally what your obligations are. If you're a buyer and you know these things are going to bother you or affect your decision whether you want to buy the home or even at what price you want to buy the home, no, the seller does not need to be forthcoming and just let you know these things up front. You need to ask, because there's another rule that takes effect here. The seller cannot lie. Once they're asked a direct question, they cannot lie. And I don't mean, your realtor makes a quick phone call. I mean, it's actually in the offer that the home has not been, for example, the scene of any violent crime. The seller promises the home has not been the scene of any violent crime. Now, the seller needs to respond to that. And if they initial or sign off, it should mean it hasn't. The seller could still lie, let's be honest, but at least you have some recourse now. So if there's things that bother you, ask directly, because we are not allowed to lie. Not disclosing does not mean you're lying. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. And if you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the numbers. Here we go, folks. In this show, we're focused on York Region, specifically detached properties for Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham. Here's a summary of average sold prices for week ending February 19th. Across the board, average prices came down versus the previous week. We're going to start off with Vaughan, detached properties for week ending February 19th. 20 detached properties were sold. 5 of those were at $2 million or more. 20 fewer. The previous week we did 30, which seems like a huge jump from what we kind of used to over these first few weeks of this year. So we're down to 20, which is still better than all the previous other weeks this year so far. Average sold price is $1,677,000. 1,677 is 10% lower than where the average sold price was the same week a year ago. The median price of 1,509 is 5% lower the same week a year ago, or versus the same week a year ago. So 20 were sold. Half of those, 10, sold at list price or more. Listings, 53 were listed. Active listings is climbing slowly. We're getting more and more available for sale out there, but it's not very aggressive. There's 343 active, available for sale detached properties across Vaughan. And months of inventory climbed up to 4 months of inventory. So remember, the previous week we did 30 sales, dropped months of inventory down to 2.6. We're now at 20 sales. Months of inventory climbed up a bit to 4 months of inventory, pretty much a balanced market for detached properties across Vaughan. Here's Richmond Hill. Only 8 detached properties were sold, which is down quite a bit from the previous few weeks. 3 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price, $1,995,000. So somewhere there, mid 1.9 to just over 2 million seems to be where the number for average sold price has sat for the previous few weeks now this year. 1,995 is 1% higher than where the average price was for the same week a year ago. The median price is 1% lower. Median price is 1,826. 8 sold, 38% of those, so not many, sold at list price or more. Listings, there are far more listings this year versus the same period a year ago. 344 active listings, and months of inventory shot way up there to 9.9 months of inventory. Here's Markham. 13 detached properties were sold. 2 of those were at $2 million or more. Looks like sales are coming down when it comes to Markham. Average sold price also has come down versus the previous week to $1,640,000. 1,640 is 4% higher than this time a year ago. The median price of 1,520 is 3% lower. Sales, far fewer sales this year versus last year. 54% of those sales of 13 sold at list price or more. Listings, okay, so sales, we said fewer sales than the same period versus last year. Listings is the opposite. Far more listings this year versus last year. And active listings is climbing. We're at 317 available detached properties for sale across Markham. Months of inventory has been climbing. We're now at 5.6 months of inventory. Here's a quick summary. Depending on what you're looking for, remember these are all based on the whole city, the whole Vaughan, Richmond Hill, or Markham as an average of all sales, detached properties, all sales. You're going to experience, depending on home type, specific neighborhood, price point, a different market. Generally speaking, it's either going to be a balanced market or a buyer's market. That's what you're going to experience in most cases, but it can vary. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.